Welcome, everyone, to the 2017 Boston Businesswoman Be Bold Conference. You are in a sold-out event, so everybody give it up for getting your tickets on time.
Yay!
Woo!
You made it.
Thank you to each and every one of you who came today. We're really excited. We have a ton in store and a lot of Be Bold females that are going to take the stage today to inspire you and ignite the awesomeness that you already have within you. So we have a full packed day today. So this is Anna Sweet, and I'm Megan Marini. We're co-founders of the conference. And I wanted to tell you... Yay! I wanted to tell you a little bit about the mission of Boston Businesswoman. How many people here, this is your first Boston Businesswoman event? Whoa!
No way!
Wow! All right.
It's a takeover.
Welcome, all you newbies. That's really exciting. Shout out a couple ways, like how did you guys hear about us? How?
Stephanie?
Facebook, yeah, right? What was it?
Yeah.
Oh, past attendees, awesome. So yeah, we're now at over 9,000 women in the group, which is an astronomical amount of growth for the amount of time. So it's a very viral community that we're part of here. And I liken that to the fact that we celebrate each other, we celebrate diversity, and we truly are collaborative. So we want this community to continue to be about you. So we invite you to make it about you and to help each other out like a sisterhood. We want to hear from you today, throughout the day, of what your experience is like. We took over social media last year, and we plan to do the same this year. So we have some exciting things today. What are you excited about?
Ooh, what am I excited about? So we have this amazing event planned, and we have some really great speakers on our panels today. And actually, I'm personally really excited for Cindy Stumpo. Are there Cindy fans in the house? Nice, nice. And Cindy actually sponsored a bunch of tickets for women to come. Yes, and so that's definitely part of the community, definitely part of the tribe. And obviously really excited for Susie Betis of Poopery with her incredible story. And I actually used some Poopery this morning. I won't tell anyone. No one knows, right? What about you? What are you excited for?
TMI. So I'm really excited that the mayor of Boston, we have a man that's going to take the stage this year. So that's exciting to me. And also, I'm really excited for Marsha Wagner's talk about a competitive advantage in today's market as a woman, with some surprising takeaways from her talk. So I want to thank some of the sponsors that have made this day possible for us. We have a long list of sponsors, so I'm not going to read all of them. But Brigham and Women's Center for Infertility and Reproductive Surgery believed in us in the very beginning and made last year and this year happen. So a big warm thanks to them. They are right over there, so say hello to them. I want to thank Blue Cross and Blue Shield. They're somewhere in the room here. You guys can wave. Yeah, girls, thank you for coming. I want to thank General Dynamics for believing in us. And we have Neem Medical Spa, who is working to help beautify the group. Not that we need it, but I need it. I'm committed to that. And thank you to all the other sponsors. I don't want to have too long of a list of sponsors, but you know who you are. They're around. And we have other things for you guys to do besides sitting in your seats today.
Yes, so how many of you have visited the exhibitor booths? Incredible, right? I saw some women getting their lashes done. This is incredible. So these are all women who are part of our community. And please visit the exhibitor booths. We actually have an experts section in the back where basically you get a lot of really great advisors, from financial to marriage law to family law to business law. And they're going to give you a lot of really great free advice and advising. So please visit them. And then for the members in the room, who are members here? Yay! Members and future members, we have a special membership lounge where G2O is going to be doing lots of spa services, massages, just get pampered, go in the back. And also I want to do a special thank you to Melanie Platten, who's our MC for today from NBC Boston. Melanie, yay. And also for Liz Bruner, and also for Tanya Nayak, who will be moderating the panels. And also another few sponsor thank yous, the Counterattack team, Endpoint Security. Where are you ladies? Yay, nice. And then also thank you for all of the other sponsors in the room today. We couldn't have done it without you. And so.
So I want to ask one more question. How many women in the room right now are entrepreneurs? If you could raise your hand.
Yay, not easy.
All right, all right.
How many of you are working a 9-to-5 with a 401k and a retirement plan and a dental plan? Good for you. Good for you. I love this.
We're jealous of you.
So jealous. How many introverts? How many introverts are in the room?
Consider yourself an introvert.
Yay.
Oh, not many, not many. How many consider yourselves to be extroverts?
Extroverts. Yay. So much louder.
And how many here have had a positive experience or some great connection came out of your relationships through Boston Businesswoman to date?
Yay.
All right, let's make more of those today. We're still hearing about stories from last year, all of the connections and relationships that were made. So make sure you make some new ones today and really make this day yours. Okay. We have some other social media giveaways for you guys too, which we're really excited about. One of which you hopefully didn't sit on. This was on your seat. It's a beautiful custom 3D card. It's made by our sponsors and partners out of New York, a really fresh startup paper pop cards. And they are going to send this card out for you, so no postage from you. You just go visit their booth. If you can fill it out and send it to someone in your life that's had a positive influence on your career, so perhaps a mentor or a friend, maybe you want to tell them your story of what makes you bold, or make a promise about your career, and then send that to them today. At their booth, they're also giving away 1 free year of custom pop-up cards. So if you have a business, that would be a fantastic thing to win, right? So go visit them for sure. And then Green Tangerine Spa, just downstairs in the Sheraton, did our hair and makeup today. They glammed us up. They are giving away 100 free argan oils to the first 100 people that go down there. 25% off, or I'm sorry, 20% off any appointments booked today, and 10% off for the entire year for anyone from Boston Businesswoman. So if you need to get some hair and makeup. And then, last but not least, is the Boston Businesswoman social media giveaway today. So using your social media platform of choice, hashtag Boston Businesswoman throughout the day, and tell us what makes you bold. The winner receives 2 free nights and dinner for 2 at Nantucket Island Resort. I'm so jealous. I want to go with you. So definitely post to that and introduce yourself to other people. Let us know what you're experiencing on social media, and let's all connect. So we're going to have an amazing day. We're going to kick off with our beloved founder, Christina Saporis. Let's give a big, warm applause. Christina is going to be interviewed by Kip Hollister, CEO and founder of Hollister Staffing. She's going to be telling Christina's story, or talking to Christina about her story, from going from a C student to a CEO. So let's give it up again for Christina Saporis and the Boston Businesswoman.
Hello, everyone. Can you guys hear me back here? Someone was saying earlier it's hard. Can you raise your hand if you can hear us, okay? Awesome. All right.
Good. So, Christina, you and I have the pleasure right now of inviting these 900 new BFFs into our coaching session. And I've had the distinct pleasure of having you both go through the Hollister Institute today and coaching you now. And so my first question for you is, who is Christina? Who are you at your core?
That's a good one. So, I've practiced this speech and where am I going to start, really? I'm 32 years old, but I feel like I've lived 3 lifetimes in 32 years. It's a long story, and I like to talk about it publicly because I think a lot of women in the room are affected by it, but probably don't talk about it as much. There's definitely a few pivotal moments in my life that has kind of brought me to where I am today. I was like a very happy child, very positive, very outspoken at a young age, my parents would tell you. Classic, stubborn, outgoing, happy child. And it wasn't until I hit like 3rd or 4th grade that I realized I was different and struggling in school, started getting separated into different reading classes than my peers, and at a young age felt different, felt stupid, felt not valued, and that stuck with me. And my mom was a teacher, so I didn't really know how to, as a child, I didn't know what that meant really, but I kind of just, left it inside. So moving on, my high school years, my freshman and sophomore year, I truly felt that way. I was different. I wasn't enough. So practiced with alcohol and drugs and dating older people and hanging out with the bad kids and not going to class. Someone actually from my high school just sent me my report cards, which was, it was scary to look at. I was almost failing out of school. And then my sophomore year, I came home one night to find my mother on the ground. And she had suffered from alcoholism her whole life, and I didn't know how bad it was. Or I guess I was oblivious to it. And I didn't realize it had gotten that bad. But at that moment, I became an adult. At 15 and a half, 16 years old, my father also has a gambling problem, and 2 parents who have serious addictions. My sister was away in college in Madrid, so I took it upon myself to get my mom into rehab, get on the phone with the insurance companies, advocate for her on her behalf. And at the time, I didn't realize it, but that's actually the first time in my life that I felt valuable, that I felt important, that I felt needed. So I moved on to start doing better in school, to start taking life more seriously, because I felt I did have a purpose. My family needed me. So I moved on I got into a low-reach school because, standardized testing was not my thing. I did not do well on the SATs. And it ended up being a school that I really didn't want to be at. No one was taking school seriously there, and for the first time, I actually did want to learn. So I ended up feeling so depressed and so lost. And my family was doing better, but not the type of support that I needed. My friend was in Israel. My support system was gone. So I couldn't get out of bed one day. I literally could not get out of bed. I was so depressed. And it scared me. It scared me to my core. And I said, this is not the life I want to live. So I took myself to the counselor's office, and she told me something. She didn't say law of attraction at the time, which is so important to me. But she was basically teaching me that I can trick myself into being happy no matter what my circumstances. And in that moment, it changed my life forever. So I started dreaming up this beautiful life of going to school by the ocean and being in a sorority and having amazing friends, and just started playing with this newfound awareness of I have control of my thoughts and my life, and I can create anything I wanted. And when it started happening, I was scared. I was like, oh my God, this works. This is so powerful. So I ended up going to my dream school. I got into one of the best wedding planning firms in New York on Madison Avenue, burnt out from that, started my first, it's a long story, I'm trying to get through it. But I got to burnout in New York from bridezillas, if you will. And I moved home, moved in with the parents, started waitressing at night, started my first job as being an entrepreneur, because I always had a notebook full of ideas and wanted to do something. So I took a Greek tea and I turned it into a ready-to-drink beverage. And again, I had no fears. I was going after, creating this dream world, heaven on earth, if you will. And I got distribution from Budweiser. We just secured Market Basket and Stop and Shop. But since I never dealt with her, this second grader came up, and you're not good enough, and you're not smart enough. And I said, you know what, you're right. You're right, like little Christina. So I brought on a business partner. I gave her half my company. I let her bring on a board who took away my decision making. We all had a decision on a board. And a year later, I was removed from my own company. So 3 years in the making, my everything. This product was so close to my heart. It was my grandmother's recipe. And that was a tough blow. And I'm still recovering from that. So
Well, you can see, right, where you kind of had a self-fulfilling prophecy going on.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So often you and I talk a lot about, I think one of the most important leadership traits is that of self-awareness and vulnerability. So what has your learning been through all of this? You know, help everyone here to see what that looks like, feels like for you.
yeah, I think for me it was, and so I'm going through leadership coaching with Kip right now, and it was important for me to first of all get on stage and tell my story, and I've never shared that much about my story with a public audience, but being authentic, being true to who you are, really seeing what's in the dark shadows of your past, being authentic and real, and ownership, you know, because it takes two to tango. I've made my mistakes, and looking at myself and saying, I'm sorry, or even leading my team the wrong way or making a mistake. Forgiveness is a huge one, forgive and forget. I mean, like holding on to stuff from the past is very, very real. And, you know, some people can make it to the top of their careers or sell their company for 300 million, whatever, and, you know, still they're gonna crash and burn at some point if they didn't deal with that stuff, personally or professionally. I mean, it's all intertwined.
Right. So would you say, you know, that adage of ignorance is bliss? Is there ever a time where you kind of want to go back to, let me just get through life, because it was easier?
Yeah.
Like, what do you?
For me, I think no, because I think everything happens for a reason. I truly, truly believe I was put on this earth to do certain things, to learn certain lessons, and I wrote a book about it, Busy Girl's Guide to Happiness, about everything I've gone through, and I talk a lot about failing forward. And if you can redefine failure and use it as leverage and use it to fill you up and use it as motivation, you know, personally and professionally, if a woman has something to prove, there's nothing that's going to stop her. I always say that.
Yeah. I mean, you're a testimony to that, right? Yeah. I mean, you're not only the CEO of Boston Business Women, but you're also the CEO of Moroccan Magic. Tell me how that all plays out.
Sure. So the whole I have something to prove to myself, to others. 2 years ago, I started Boston Business Women purely because I was working from home out of Milton, talking to my dog all day long, wanting to get out there and meet other women. And I went to so many events in town where you put on a name tag, you shake hands, but it didn't feel real. It didn't feel authentic. I was looking for a tribe. I was looking for support. I was looking for, you know, a group of women who I could go off and conquer my fears, and I could lift them up to do the same. And at the end of the day, we know we're going to be okay because we have that support. And women think they have to go and take over the world on their own, and that's bullshit, to be honest. You know, we need community. We need support. And that's the whole women who think they're, you know, superheroes or feel like they need to be superheroes and do it all. And that's when crash and burn happens. So I started it purely as a Facebook group because I actually am an introvert and my energy gets sucked really easily, and I am sensitive. Even like I just came downstairs from my hotel room because I just needed to ground myself before a day like today. But 2 years later, I think we hit 9,200 women in our Facebook group. If you're not part of the Facebook group, it is the best. I'm obviously biased, but it's the best Facebook group out there. You know, I'll scroll it at night and someone will be talking about something they went through, or even a divorce that they're going through, or, you know, just something bad or exciting that happened. And by the end of the day, you have 70 comments of, oh my God, you need to link up with so-and-so. And women are starting businesses together. Women are, you know, Rachel Rubin just did my makeup upstairs. She's 27. She's doing our keynotes right now, but she has a huge salon in space, and she's so amazing. And I've referred so much business to her. It's really nice to see women collaborating in that aspect. So second year of our conference, we have our membership program. It's just grown beyond what I could have ever imagined. And then Moroccan Magic has been quite a magical company. My friend brought me back a bottle of the pure cold-pressed argan oil, and I've always been curious about a very crowded area like iced tea and lip balm that no one's really innovated. So I started testing argan oil, which is very well known in hair care in America, but no one's really brought it into the skincare lip care world. It's very well known in high end. There's a $30 argan oil lip balm out there on the market, but no one was doing it in the mainstream market. So started playing around with formulators. Through Boston Businesswomen, we teach a course how to launch a product, which is, all the expensive mistakes I've made and learned along the way that I teach other women not to do now. But let's see, in the last 3 months, we got into full chain CVS, where we're launching in August. We're in 1,000 stores now. Steve Wozniak, the co-founder of Apple, just tweeted about us, and it's just been, we have really big growth goals, but people are loving the product, and it's something I'm really proud of. And I'm sitting on here today, like, owning it, owning all of my story. Even last week with Boston Businesswomen, there was stuff, a mistake that was made. I had to take ownership. We had to move on from it, and we're always evolving and learning and coaching with you and going through Hollister Institute. And I just took the Interrise 2-day Streetwise MBA program. There's so many amazing things in Boston. So just, if you're not failing, you're a failure. I've heard that before. You're not putting yourself out there enough to really live life and learn and grow and evolve.
Right, right.
So that's where I am today.
That's good. And look you're here and everyone's here. So what would you, yeah, great. So I think we always talk about success. Just give me one of your failures that you've and what have you learned from the failure that has made you, more connected with yourself?
Which one?
I know. Pick one.
There's been a few. I would say in my first company, again, never give away 50% of your company, ever. Always hold on to that 51% in ownership, and I'm very protective of my babies now. But I guess the biggest one would be I believed that I had to go after big VC funding and just go big. This company, I'm being a lot smarter, self-funding, not growing as quickly as I might want to. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So I think that's a big one for me.
Great. And how about a few tips to give these 900 amazing women?
Let me look at my note cards. I had some good
What do
ones
you
last
have?
night while I was going to bed. I think simplifying our life, our choices, our goals. I've sat in so many 3-hour strategy meetings where I'm actually on my laptop taking the action. I'm like, that just took me 10 minutes. Let's move on to the next thing. So that's very big in startup world, but I think you have to God, everything. We complicate things so much in our minds that you teach that all the time. So not all of our thoughts are kind or are true even. Right. So simplifying our thoughts, and if you notice that, being really self-aware. So if you notice you're going down that negative path, taking it back and focusing on the blue sky. I have 2 feet to walk down here today and walk on stage with. Appreciating things every day. That's a big one.
Gratitude, right?
Gratitude, yeah, huge. Mm-hmm. And I'm, happy to share on stage that there's still stuff that comes up with me. So some of the homework Kip gave me was to send apology notes. Even back to the boy I broke his heart in 4th grade. It just, you wouldn't believe it, but this stuff stays with you. And it could be so in your subconscious, but our subconscious really is running the show.
85% of the time.
There you go. She is the statistics. I'm not a statistics
of the time. Yes, it's true.
Yeah.
And it lives cellularly in our bodies, right? So you get that.
Yes.
You really get that we're mostly energy, and for you to move through to the next level for yourself, it's time, right, to kind of clean up any stuff that's lingering.
Right. And for the first time I'm saying, I want to make $1 million. I want to sit here on stage. I deserve to be here.
You're worthy.
I'm worthy of it. And last year I couldn't tell you that. I walked up on stage to the podium. I was nervous. I was shaking. But today I feel comfortable enough in my own skin, and I've proved myself to others, to myself. And I want to share my story authentically, because every woman in this room, and there's a lot of women who are here, she said thanks to Cindy Stumpo, who couldn't afford to be here today. And I've been there. I've been in New York where I couldn't afford $2 to take the bus, and I was eating grilled cheese for a month. So you can shift your circumstances.
Right.
I don't care where you came from. We are in control of our lives.
Good. Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
You want to do the takeaways? Yeah? And then I'll do the meditation. So you also have some giveaways.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have people to thank and I have giveaways. And then Kip is going to take us through a meditation and ground us before this amazing day. Oh yeah, okay, Busy Girl Boston is up there. I'm very, very honest on social media. I'm Busy Girl Boston on everything, but I don't know if my beach bag made it up to stage, but I want to do just a fun little giveaway. So if you follow Busy Girl Boston, which is me on Instagram, and Moroccan Magic, we have a beautiful hand-beaded beach bag, and it's filled with $300 worth of products, as well as a year supply of lip balm. We're making a beautiful lip scrub right now, so you'll actually be the first to test our new flavors. You're getting one all in your fabulous swag bag today, so if you want to enter, we're going to do the giveaway Sunday at 5 o'clock. So if you just want to take a fun photo of today or of the product, and just from the bottom of my heart, thank you, because we're hitting CVS nationwide, and it's a great product, and it would help us a lot. And I mentioned her before, but Rachel Rubin, if you've seen any of my photos, my glam shots on social media, she does them all. She's fabulous. Boston is lucky to have her. Interrise is the 2-day program that I went through. That was amazing. I really recommend it if you have a side hustle or if you're an entrepreneur. It's a nonprofit, so it's very affordable to go through. G2O Spa, they're in our members lounge today, so if you are a Boston Businesswomen member, you can try them out. And did my assistant Kimberly make it today? She's been working so hard. She's so sick, but I'm standing up here today telling my story, but it takes a village. We have our directors team who are out there in the hall. Raise your hand if you're in the room. These women are the women behind Boston Businesswomen, truly, truly moving the movement and making it happen. Anna and Megan, the co-founders of the conference, have been amazing. Vanita, who's our new advisor, who's been absolutely brilliant. And Selfmade is just a really cool app. They're out there today. They basically take an image of yours and they manipulate it in a way that it's just going to elevate your brand. It's really, really cool, so go talk to them today. And thank you so much. Have fun.
Okay, so welcome. And how many of you would love to turn inward to your awesomeness right now, right? To really bask in the self-love. We don't do enough of it. We beat ourselves up, as Christina said. We mostly have negative thoughts. So I'm just going to guide you through a really brief 4-minute meditation. And what I want you to do to prepare is just put both feet on the floor and get yourselves grounded with feel comfortable in your seat. And I invite you to gently close your eyes. And I want you to bring your awareness now to your breath. And as you bring your awareness to the breath, just notice the thoughts. They're always going to be there. And as they come through, just allow them to pass by as if they are puffy white clouds passing in this beautiful blue sky. And then gently bring your awareness back to watching the breath. And imagine this violet ball of energy cascading down through the crown of your head. And allow this energy to move down and move and blend through every cell and membrane in your body, giving yourself this inner cleansing of love, acceptance, compassion for self. Breathing into the heart. And as you release the energy to those around your table. And taking another deep cleansing breath into the heart as your heart opens. And send that energy out to all of the colleagues here, the 900 people. You are enough. You are more than enough. You are love, you are loving, and you are lovable. Bringing your awareness back into the room with your eyes still closed. Wiggling your fingers, your toes, moving your head side to side. Feeling the love opening in your heart to give and receive. Taking a deep cleansing breath into your heart, filling it with the energy for this magnificent day. And when you are ready, you may gently open your eyes. Namaste to a fantastic day.
Now that we're all zenned out, it's my honor to announce our next speaker. He's the only male speaker for today, so let's be super welcoming. It's Martin J. Walsh, the mayor of Boston.
Thank you very much, Melanie. Thank you for that great introduction. And how lucky am I as mayor of the city of Boston? Thank you, all of you, for being here today. I want to thank Krista. I want to thank Megan. I want to thank Anna for this incredible conference, putting it together. You deserve certainly a lot of kudos for that. I also want to thank Megan Costello, the director of the Women's Office of Advancement in the city of Boston, who's done some incredible things with us. Thank you, Megan, for being here. And I want to thank Kip in particular for her leadership as a Boston business owner and being instrumental in the equal pay legislation passed last year. I don't know if Kip left, but thank you very much, Kip, for what you did. I am truly honored to be here today. Certainly I am, and I'm also honored to work alongside you who make Boston the best possible city for working women. In the work, I consider myself an ally and an advocate and an amplifier. Now that I know the risk of running and saying mansplaining, but I'd like to talk about the idea of amplification. And I'm sure most of you in the room already know many women in President Obama's administration developed a way to make sure women receive credit for their work. They would amplify one another by acknowledging and echoing one another's ideas. We adopted that practice at City Hall. And it took me a little while to catch on, and I was watching at the cabinet meetings and other meetings as everyone, all the women sat together and started talking about each other, interjecting each other in conversation. And you know something, it does work. Because everyone in my administration understands the importance of amplifying women's voices. It's a concept that guides everything that we do in the city. It's because we're affecting real change, requiring more than legislation. It's a required shift in culture. And again, we talked in this country for the last 10 to 15 years about passing equal pay legislation and all the different conversations. And when I became mayor, I said, it's time for us to stop talking about passing legislation. It's about time for taking action. And one of the places that we need to take action is in the workplace. That's why in 2015 we created a program called We Boss. And our director's here today, Kara Miller, and I want to thank Kara as well. We Boss, let's clap. We Boss provides the resources and the network women entrepreneurs need to launch and grow their businesses. And it's something, if we want to continue to make advancement gains, and many of you in this room know what I'm talking about, if not all of you. I am proud to announce that we're going to hold our third annual We Boss Week starting October 16th this year. It will feature high-profile speakers, workshops, coaching sessions, and networking throughout our city. We also, throughout all of our work, we use data. We use data to measure where we're going. And that's why early this year we released our gender wage gap study. It was one of my proudest moments as mayor because it was the first time in the United States of America that companies anonymously agreed to give wage data. So we could actually really get a real good gauge on where we have gaps. Our first report represented 11% of the greater Boston workforce and $11 billion in compensation. So we're able to get a real good snapshot of what's happening in the business community here in the city of Boston. We're also going to continue to work on individual levels with salary negotiation workshops. This is an idea that Megan Costello and other women came up with about, in history, has been when a woman gets offered a job and the salary's offered, generally the answer is okay, thank you, and you leave. And through the salary negotiation workshop, we're working with you and coaching you on how to negotiate higher salaries so that we can close that income inequality gap and close that wage gap, that when a man gets a job, it's okay for him to push back and get a higher salary, but when a woman gets a job, it's not okay to push back. And that's what we're doing through our negotiation workshops, is helping women push back. And to date, when I say I really haven't trained anybody. The program has trained over 4,000 and worked with 4,000 women. But it's also, the issue of negotiation and salary increase is vital to Boston's economy and Boston's success. Because we need to draw from the entire pool of talent here in the city of Boston. Like I said, affecting real change requires a culture shift. You have to create a sisterhood in order to drive that shift. In all the work we're doing, we need leaders and amplifiers like all of you in this room today, all 900 women in this room. And a couple men, don't be afraid to speak up and say the right things every now and then. Not to put you on the spot, but I am. So we need to get you into our work and get girls more involved in science, technology, engineering, and math. We need to continue to work to close the wage gap. So when we talk about girls and women, I talk about from the age of 4 years old all the way through. We need to continue to close the wage gap. We need to continue to fight sex trafficking. And we need to make sure that we make this city, our city, the best in the country for working women and for women across the board. I want to thank you all for what you do. I am proud to continue to amplifying your ideas and your successes, and have a great conference. Thank you very much.
So our next panel, or our first panel of the day, is going to be is Bold in the Boardroom. And the purpose of this panel, we brought up some powerful women in their industries, and we wanted to discuss a little bit about female empowerment in management positions, how to kind of own your own space in your career, how to really navigate a world that's male-dominated, or own your power. And so while not all of our panelists are on a board seat or in a board seat, all of them hold management positions. So the purpose of this panel is really to discuss being bold in the boardroom. So before we go further, I'm going to have each one of our ladies introduce themselves and just give a little brief bio about what they do and their background. So why don't we start? Do you want to start? Okay.
Hi, everyone. My name's Sarah Layton. I work at Vistaprint, where I've been for over 10 and a half years and held over those years a variety of different positions. But I'm currently responsible for strategy, analytics, customer research, planning, internal communications, a bunch of other things as well. I am also a mother of 2 little boys, ages 4 and 8, and I have a wonderful husband named Jab.
Hello, I'm Sarah Hodkinson. I'm the VP of Marketing for Smarter Travel, which is a TripAdvisor company. I joined the company just last year after having spent 5 years at PayPal in a variety of marketing leadership roles. I also serve on the board of directors for Radius Bank. I'm an active angel investor, a passionate advocate for LGBTQ rights, advise a number of startups, and I've had a career spanning over 2 decades and 2 continents at this point.
Hi, I'm Osha Zavor. So I didn't grow up in the country, and I think that's sort of the different thing about me is that I grew up in India and studied there and joined Unilever in India. So since then, it's been 10 years, and I've worked across 5 different countries, including Singapore, Bangkok, Istanbul, India, and now here. And across all of these 10 years at Unilever, where I'm no longer anymore, so we'll get to that part of it, but at Unilever, I spent 10 years working through various consumer products and branding initiatives for that, straddling between business management, consumer understanding, marketing campaigns, creation of TV print assets, and deploying the media plans for it. And then very recently, last year, I joined Elizabeth Arden, which is a prestige beauty firm, and they own a bunch of fragrance licenses, and I currently work on Juicy Couture fragrance brand. I head up the marketing for that particular brand for Elizabeth Arden and do all of the amazing, fun marketing-related activities for them. Other than that, just like Sarah Layton, I have 2 daughters, 4 and 1, really, really small, but very cute. And I, even if I say so myself, right? But yeah, that's my second job right now, and that's about me. Off to Krista.
Thank you. I'm Krista Haggerty, president and owner of Dependable Cleaners. We're a family-run business, 3rd generation, founded by my grandparents back 74 years ago. Dependable provides dry cleaning services throughout Eastern Massachusetts through 16 locations, plus delivery. Plus, we have a great service to take care of wedding gowns, bridal, restoring and preserving gowns that have been passed down through generations as well. It's one of my favorite parts of the business, making memories and preserving memories. I entered the business back in 1995 during a family crisis and came into an industry that's mostly male-dominated and have really developed our brand and an incredible management team made up of mostly women who I just love working with every day. I'm also the mother of 3 kids, a 17-year-old boy, a 20-year-old and a 22-year-old, balancing and juggling. When I became president of the company, it was 3 months after my second child was born. She didn't sleep for more than 2 hours for the first 6 months. It was crazy, but lots of fun.
Great.
Lots. Looking back, everything is fun.
Great. Great. Well, so let me just give you a little background about how this is going to work. I've spoken to these women before, and when we were discussing how to run this panel and what kind of questions to ask, we also decided to poll some of our Facebook audience and get some questions. So we've kind of put together a combination of both. So I'm going to start with one of our Facebook questions that we got for all of these women, just to kind of break the ice and jump right in. And whoever wants to take this, please feel free. But the first question that we got, and it was actually the most popular question, was how do you handle it when you're feeling ignored or talked over during meetings? And what are some ways to assert yourself without coming across pushy? So we thought that was pretty, you could really speak to that, being that you're in all powerful positions in your careers. Sarah, do you want to start?
Sure. Okay, so one thing for myself is that I think I use inquiry a lot by asking questions as a way to get in. So I think that if there's something that I have to say, but without trying to appear pushy, what I'll do is I'll often ask a question to clarify, and I'll say, oh, do you mean this? Or what about this? And by that, I'm able to open up a door to offer what my point of view might be as well. And I think that that's a way that you can kind of get in without being overbearing. But I think one of the things that I know myself is that the faster I get into the conversation and part of the discussion, the easier it is. I'm one of those people who I think just classically overthinks situations, and so I know that when I go into a meeting, and I go into a meeting with our board, that I want to get in and establish my presence right away, and so I try to think in advance of how I'm able to do that. If we're presenting, I often volunteer to go first, just so that I can do that and I can kind of get out of the gate and feel, once I start, I feel like then it rolls more easily.
Do you feel like we as women do that maybe more than men do, where men feel like they walk into the conversation a little bit more self-assertive, and that we kind of question our way into those kind of that kind of dialogue?
Well, I think it's fine to question your way in. I think sometimes women hang back and they wait. And they listen because they want to assess the situation, they want to know more. I know that I'm like that. But I think sometimes men, for better or worse, they come in and they already feel like they have a point of view and they're ready to state it, and they want people to listen to them.
Why is that?
I'm not really sure. But I mean, I think what it does is that it also it makes women question their credibility. And so that's where I think you just have to put yourself out there. And I've certainly, over the years, I've made mistakes. I've said things that I regret later on, or I think to myself, well, maybe that was the wrong thing to say. But I think it's just doing that over and over and putting yourself out there and taking the chance where you get used to it and you realize, well, sometimes you're not going to say the right thing. You're going to make a mistake. But you live to tell about it. I'm here, still fine. And it's just about continuing to do that, I think, over and over. That really gets you in the practice of being able to be present in the room and be part of that conversation.
Sarah, what about you?
I think it's important to recognize that the loudest voice in the room isn't always the most valuable voice in the room. And even if it doesn't happen to you personally, if you see this happening to other women in the context of a meeting, what I try to do is make sure that they're a part of the conversation and elicit their point of view and make sure that they're heard. And I think that that's one way we can support one another further.
Definitely.
I think for me, it's just the moment you asked this question, I recently thought, literally 2 weeks ago, we're working on an innovation for our fragrance brand, and we were discussing pricing for that particular product, and I'm sitting with two of my leaders, and we're talking, and suddenly it becomes two men versus me, and we're having this whole conversation. It's becoming a very heated conversation where I'm saying, I want to take up pricing on this innovation because we're going to do this to make it better, and they're saying, well, you've no right to ask for a higher price on your brand. And it's becoming very heated, and I'm feeling like they're not letting me finish my sentences. And I think at some point in time, you kind of have to put your foot down and say, excuse me, can I please finish what I'm saying? And you really just have to do it, because if you don't do it, you will be talked over. And I had to say that, and they both did quiet down, and I did make my case for it. We did not agree in that meeting, but then I went away and I did my work more and more and more, and I collected points of argument that would justify my standpoint, which was to take up pricing on the innovation. I followed up with it. I kept pushing for it because in my heart I knew that was the right thing to do. And then over 1 or 2 weeks of further debates, we did get there. And I think it happens to us often enough when somebody would just veto you over or whatever. And I think sometimes it's okay to take a step back because there are people in the organization who may know more. But if you think that what you have to say is valid and you've done your work for it and you know it's right, you've got to say, let me finish, please.
Kristen,
Right?
what about you?
Excellent points. So when I first joined the family business, or rejoined in my mid to late 20s, I'd go to these industry meetings, and it was all owners of businesses and presidents who, very entrepreneurial, very dominant, very strong personalities. And honestly, a lot of them did not really think that I, as a female, as the daughter, should be in the business, despite my MBA, despite all that I had done. And what I realized when they would speak over me or not include me in something, at first I took it personally, and then I realized it's not about me, it's about them. It's about who they are, how they were brought up, what their experiences were. And once that turned, and so I could look at it from, I actually feel sorry for you guys, because you're bypassing some really important people. And then over time, I just proved myself and was able to really cement it. I also, whenever I can, I like to play a coordinator or facilitator role within the meetings, because then I have that control and I can make sure all the voices are heard.
Yeah.
And that's what's important. Every voice should be heard.
Yeah. So let's change gears a little bit. Sarah H., among your career success at TripAdvisor, you're on the board of Radius Bank. How do women go about securing a board position?
Sure. I think my first board experience was actually on a nonprofit board, board called Start Out, a nonprofit that's cultivating entrepreneurship in the LGBTQ community. And I got into that board by volunteering. I was very involved in the local chapter, working with the local steering committee, and I was approached by the national organization to join that board. And I think the first step to working in a for-profit board context is to get some nonprofit board experience. I think it's also about elevating your visibility. So I tend to get out there quite a bit. I do quite a lot of speaking engagements. I've developed a lot of media within the industry that I wish to work in Boston Tech, and also within LGBTQ. Networking is incredibly important, so coming to events like this, also being very active online and on LinkedIn, really establishing your reputation as a voice that can add value, I think is incredibly important. And I think, in today's environment, a lot of boards are looking for more diversity. They recognize that there's an absence of women, an absence of people of color, an absence of LGBTQ people on board. So I was very fortunate when I was approached by Radius. They'd read about me in the Boston Business Journal. They contacted me through LinkedIn. I ended up sitting down with them, and they said, look, we're looking for somebody that has a very different perspective. That understands financial technology, that understands direct-to-consumer marketing, but also brings a unique perspective to the board. I am, by many years, the youngest person on the board. I'm one of only 2 women on the board, and I think they often look to me for that unique perspective, because I think that companies that are looking to grow and innovate understand that you can't foster innovation without a diversity of perspectives and without challenging the status quo. And if you have a very homogenous composition of a board, you're not going to get that. So in order to make that progress, I think it's increasingly recognized.
You mentioned the LGBTQ community. As an out gay woman in your community and industry, how has that shaped your experience? If you could talk a little bit about that.
Sure. I think when I first graduated college, I actually had experiences where I was denied employment by virtue of who I am. And it was very thinly veiled in, we think you'd be really great for this job, but you're just not a cultural fit. Because I'd show up to the interview in a suit and tie or something and be pretty out about who I am. But then I realized I didn't want that job at Farmers Weekly selling classified ads. And I came to realize that I really don't want to work anywhere where I wouldn't be accepted and included and valued for the perspective that I bring to the table. So I made a very conscious choice to be very out and to be very visible. And by consequence of that, I ultimately find myself in situations where that's perceived now as a value rather than as a detriment.
I want to switch gears to you a little bit. You came to the United States in 2010, and I wanted you to talk to the group a little bit about your transition here and how you navigated that and how you were received, both being a woman and someone from the outside.
Sure. I think for me, the hardest part was, so I was in Singapore working for Unilever when I decided to marry my then boyfriend, now my husband, and he was Indian American, and he was already on his way back here, and I decided to join him. But at that point, 2008 is when the crisis happened, and 2010-ish is when I was looking to move. In fact, late 2009 is when I was starting to move. And what I quickly realized was that was the hardest time to move as a foreigner, because the economy slumped, everybody's looking for jobs, employment rate is at its highest, and how can you, as a company, justify bringing a foreigner in when there is absolutely skilled labor in your own country to be able to do that job? So I very quickly realized that was going to be my biggest hurdle and barrier, and when I was looking for jobs, it wasn't easy, even within Unilever when I was making within company move. And really, at the end of it, it boiled down to me taking a step down. I was a manager in Singapore. I decided to move here as an associate manager. But when I did move, I spoke to my director and my then VP, and I said, listen, I'm taking a step down, but don't think that I don't have the skill set for it. you need to give me a chance to prove myself. And I negotiated that if in 1 year they gave me a tough project and I were able to come through on that project, that they would promote me. And I think they agreed to me at that point, and indeed, I worked on the first premium launch for Suave hair care back then. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. It's a Suave keratin infusion Moroccan infusion. There are any Suave hair care users here, maybe you will remember. But anyway, so we launched it, and it became the #1 innovation in the category in that year. And I went back to them and I said, listen, this is what we agreed to. Now we've launched something which is actually really great in your country. Am I going to get promoted? Indeed, I got promoted because they really came through on that word. So I think that was, for me, the first win that I had, and I had to really prove myself on that. I remember in that 1 year that I worked on that project, I barely slept. I slept on my computer, I woke up on my computer. There was literally nothing else that I did in that 1 year. But that hard work paid off, and it was a very hard transition. It was a big blow on the ego, it was a big blow on the emotions, and even when I moved, there was no diversity in my team. I was literally the only person of color, foreigner, working on the team, so I felt like a cultural misfit. And you would think that from a globalization perspective, now everything is the same, but still it was the same and not the same yet. So it was hard. That 1 year was very defining for me. And that was where I really tried to prove myself and navigate in that sense. So that really answers the question.
Sarah, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, it's really, I love that story, and what I think is really interesting about it is that you worked very hard, you advocated for yourself, but one of the things that I think is really rare that not enough women do is that you negotiated it and then you went back and you asked for it and you made them hold to what they had said. And it's one of the things that I've realized over the years of managing many different people, both men and women, is that I look and I think back about the number of different men who have reported to me and who have come and asked for a raise, a promotion, what's the next step? And I think about the number of women, and I've had many more women report to me, and it's very few. It's only a couple, in fact. And I think that that's actually, so many women work hard like you do. They really pour their heart and soul into everything, but then they're waiting for that recognition, and they're not willing to go back and force somebody to really accept that recognition and what they've done. But I just think that's phenomenal. So.
Sarah, let's stay on that for a second. Or hold the mic, because when we were talking, you mentioned that you see many women getting caught up in having the best solution or the best answer before they contribute. And can you talk about how women can be more of a presence in their companies and what energetic leadership is?
Yeah, so one of the things that I think about is that I think often women are looking to be able to have the answer, to be able to have that breakthrough, that aha. And one of the things I've realized over time is that very rarely does that happen. Most often it's really about the conversation and the discussion that people are having. And so when you're in a group or you're in a room, when I'm with the rest of our executive team, I think about how I can help facilitate that conversation and just move things along and make sure different points of view are represented rather than making and trying to get to the answer. Because a lot of the times it's really the answer. You may already kind of know which way you need to head, but it's about getting everybody else kind of on board and in the same place. And so it's about understanding what reservations people have. And so that's one of the things that I think is really important about feeling and knowing that your role, there are many different roles that you could have in a boardroom or in a meeting. And I think some of it is just about understanding where other people are at and asking the questions again and getting them to kind of voice where they're at. So you can move everyone together and move forward rather than just trying to come up with the answer or the best idea.
Where does that confidence come from? I know some people are a little bit more extroverted and some people are more introverted, but where does that confidence come from to say, you know what, I have something to say and it's valuable, and is that something that's innate or is that practiced?
Well, I have to say first, yes. Well, and I am one of the biggest introverts there is. So this is one of the things where I've classically or historically sat back and thought about it, and I'd rather sit there and listen and then think about it and then come back later on, but that's really not effective, and especially in the company I work for. Now it's a very fast-paced, quick-moving environment. You have to be part of the active conversation, but what I've realized is that it's just about really trying to understand, and for myself, coming from that position of not having to know the answer myself, and realizing that when I don't know the answer and I'm confused or I'm not sure how to bring things together, other people are in that situation as well. And so seeking to understand and understand others is really something where I realize everybody's there other people might not be willing to admit it, but it's actually a place that I can uniquely add value and add to the conversation.
What does some of the, this could be for all of you guys, but what are some of the younger female employees at your workplaces, what can they do, or what are some behaviors that show to you that somebody would be a good leader or somebody has, takes initiative? What are some of the behavioral signs of that?
I think that the first and most important thing is to be able to have a point of view. So when there is a question that's thrown at you, to be able to quickly formulate a point of view and then to be able to speak it out.
Even if it's wrong, just
even if
being
it's
able to
wrong.
articulate.
Yes, exactly. And I think that, just as Sarah said, it's a lot of it is just practice. And I completely 100% agree with her. Because when I started my career, there would be so many times I would not ask a question because I thought that would be a silly question. Of course, everyone else knows the answer. So I would just ask my colleague, hey, do you know the answer to this question? Hey, do you know? Nobody knows the answer. Nobody asked because everybody thought it was a silly question to ask, and now you're the one who doesn't know the answer either. So I think that as a young person, it's very important to have a point of view and to be able to articulate it and say it. There will be times you're wrong. You won't always be agreed with, but I think it's okay because as long as there is a logic to what you're saying, even if it's the wrong answer, it's okay because your business leaders are looking for your ability to present a point of view. And your point of view may not always be right, but it is a point of view and it is the reason why you're there in that team. So I completely agree with you. I think it's practice and it's being able to speak out what's in your mind.
Just switching gears a little bit to kind of a younger generation of women. You were raising 2 young girls, and I'm wondering what you say to them or how you talk to them that's different than maybe how you were communicated to as you were a child. Like, what are some of the messages that you're trying to send them now to instill kind of a powerful persona?
Right. I would say that I was very lucky to have my mom be such a supporter as she was, because I grew up in India, and in India, the movement of feminism is at a different level versus it is here. And there, women are still sometimes fighting for basic rights, right? So it's a very different environment where I grew up. But I don't think that at any point in time in my entire life did my mom or my dad make me feel like a girl. I grew up in a culture where there is clearly a preference for male child, and I was one of 2 sisters. And my parents, like, it was so funny, and I don't know if it ever happens in America, but people would ask you, so how many siblings you have? And you say, well, I have 1 sister. And, well, that's it. I told you I have only 1 sister. I do not, oh, you don't have a brother? No, I don't have a brother. And I'm like 18 at that point in time, so clearly my parents are old enough to not need to have a brother, but that question is always asked. So I grew up in that environment, and I don't think my mother ever made me feel like that. And I think what I'm trying to just really do is inculcate the same thing, which is to not talk to my girls as though they were girls, and just talk to them as though they were genderless in that sense. But I have found that society really catches up to parenting as well, because I'm seeing that my 4-year-old was never exposed to colors pink. She was never exposed to princesses. It was my social experiment, and I tried to do it. And trust me, she knows more princesses than I have ever I'm like, how do you know Cinderella? And my sister-in-law had all these toys from her daughter's childhood, and she took them all out. She's like, let me inform you, Myra knows each and every character, not only the princesses, but also the princes that went with that character. So I think at some point in time, you just let it go, and you hope that as the mother, you're giving them the right values, and they will, at some point in time, choose the right thing when the time comes right. I know, Krista, you had something great to say last time as well. So.
Yeah, I'm actually going to switch a little bit from what we talked about, but I think that girls should embrace their girlness, embrace their femaleness, embrace whoever they are, really. And that's one of the things that I talk to my girls about is that other people are going to have their opinions about you. And, you know, the whole sticks and stones, et cetera, but names actually hurt. So I always say, what is in your heart? What do you feel? Where do you get your strength? Get your strength from inside you versus from what other people's opinions are. But I have to say, so my oldest is very smart and also loves being pretty and girly and feminine. And in high school, she always felt like, kind of like she had her smart friends who kind of downplayed makeup and all of that, and then she had her friends who were, you know, into all of that. But she never felt like whole. And then she went to UCal Berkeley, and she actually found what she said, her tribe, in a sense, of people who were smart, that loved having really interesting worldly conversations and were driven, but also loved some of the stuff that she loved. And so girls, no matter what age and what they're interested in, it's a matter of finding that tribe, but also knowing what's in your heart, I think, and what's right. Exactly.
Krista, do you want to talk a little bit about, we discussed how you had joined the company in a time of crisis and that you took it over from your father. Can you talk a little bit about how you see women leading companies versus men, and if there are any kind of like innate differences there in the culture?
Oh, absolutely. So my father's style was much more directive. He's an engineering mind. I'm not an engineering mind. I'm very creative, more visionary, much more collaborative. I also, you talked about being an introvert. I was extremely shy as a kid, like the kid that you would pull out from behind your mother's skirts, you know? And so I worked really hard to develop my leadership style. And I would watch all these people like my father who were directive and loud and impressive. And I'd say, oh, I just, you know, every time I tried it, it just doesn't work for me. And then over time, I found my voice. I found my way of leading, my way of doing, which is not as much telling but is asking. I want to understand where people come from and make it more collaborative. For the team that was at the company at the time, that was a big change, the transition from my father to myself. And in fact, when I became president just 2 years after rejoining the company, and I'd make a decision, and I could see some of them walk down to my father's office to double check with him. And we had to have this prior conversation about, you know, they're going to do this, you know, you need to reinforce it. But a lot of it was we're trying to figure out how to work with the two different styles and how to be successful in the company with it. So it was a big culture change, too.
So I want to go through the line a little bit and just ask each one of you to tell us what you would say to your 20-year-old self early in your career. What would you say to yourself? Or what kind of advice would you have? Why don't you start?
All right. So my 20-year-old self, stay true to yourself, honor your own voice, listen to your heart of who you are. Don't let other people's opinions define you, some of the things that I've talked about. But also set the goals high and figure out all of the little action steps that you're going to do today. Write those down and just keep working at them.
You covered it all. I think for me, it would be very similar. I think it would be about dreaming big and finding how. And I think that it's okay to not have answers, and I'm still trying to reveal what life has to give. My career is still so long. There's still so much to do and so much to learn and so much to give, that I feel that I have my vision very clearly laid out. And I think that when I was 20, I was a bit more nervous, and I wondered if I had stuck out more. I wondered if it would be any different, but it's fine. But I think that that's what is the most important thing for me, is to just have the vision. If you have the vision, I do believe that somehow things are going to find their way there, but you have to have a very clear vision of yourself.
I think I would tell myself, don't afraid to be different. Be bold. Be your authentic self. Take risks. Speak up. And it'll all be okay.
I like that.
It'll work out.
Yeah, I think very similarly. I would tell myself first to stop worrying so much. I remember worrying a lot of just about not knowing what was going to happen in my life. Was I going to get married? Was I going to have kids? Was this the right job? What am I going to do next? I would say, it's all going to be okay. You're going to be all right. I would also tell myself, I think, that the hard work does pay off. I remember questioning that many times, like, am I just working for nothing? But it does matter. Working hard and being prepared and knowing your stuff really does matter. And then also, as Sarah said too, take risks. Because I look back at my life and I think about where the big inflection points were. And even though I was always such a planner, so detailed about what's next, what's 5 years out and 10 years out, the two biggest points in my life where I've made the most progress were those things I didn't anticipate, I didn't think through as much, and looking back on it, man, I'm surprised that I actually made those decisions, but I'm so glad that I took those risks, and I would just say to myself, don't be afraid to take risks.
Mine would be to drink less wine, but you guys obviously weren't drinkers, so good for you. That is embarrassing. That's really all the time that we have. I just wanted to just say thank you to these ladies for talking with us today and sharing your stories. We really appreciate it, and we hope that everybody got something out of it. So next up is going to be Anna Swee. So I just want to welcome Anna to the stage and say thank you to all of these ladies. Thank you guys. And I'll take this one. Thank you so much.
Hello, ladies. Can you hear me? How are we doing today? Good? Nice. Yay. Well, I want to share with you a conversation that I just had last week with a client. And some of you might relate, especially those ladies who have a 9-to-5 and a 401k and a retirement plan and a dental plan and all that stuff. So this client, let's call her Jess. We had this conversation last week, and Jess, just to give you a little bit of background, she has been in corporate finance pretty much her whole career. And she's very well known in the industry, and it's her passion, she loves it, right? And so Jess, the reason why we connected is because for the past 2 or 3 years, she's been kind of behind the scenes building up this private practice that she wants to take public into this private consulting practice to directly help women in the workplace. And we were talking because at the point when we connected, Jess was literally immobilized. The time had begun to approach the date that she had set for herself, for her to leave her corporate job and her corporate identity and go into this business owner space. And she was really scared. Like, if you can imagine fear, she could not move. And so I asked her, I was very curious, and I said, Jess, why is it that, you have all this experience, right? And you've already been doing this, you've been giving workshops, you've been talking to people, you've already had clients. Why are you so scared right now? And she thought about it, and she told me, she said, the thought that people would judge her was petrifying to her. She was so scared, and who can relate to this? She was so scared that people were going to look at her and say, what right do you have to be here, right? Who are you? You're no expert. And that thought scared her so much that she was ready to put all of her dreams to the side and just stay where she was, even though every single bit of her soul was screaming, please, let's go and follow your passion. And it was really interesting because you can actually hear it in her voice, how stuck she was. And I get this all the time, right? And it was almost like you could see that she had these blinders on. So these blinders that they put like for horses, right? And so they put the blinders right here so the horse can't see what's around them. They can only see what's in front. And for Jess, it was like she had these blinders up, and these blinders were facing her towards all of her sense of unworthiness. And no matter what, that's all that she saw. And so I got curious, and I was like, Jess, so what is it about, did people actually give you feedback to, validate any of your fears? What is it that people actually said to you that you're so scared of? And she immediately went to respond, but then she held back for a second, and she said, oh my gosh, you know what? Every single piece of feedback that I've been given has actually been not only positive, but encouraging. And so at that moment, there was a silence, because literally she could feel the disparity between her inner reality, her inner world, and this fear that was choking her, and what was actually happening in reality. And I was like, oh, so this is really interesting, Jess. Like, let's go a little deeper, right? So how does this, the fact that you have your blinders on and you're seeing your own unworthiness, despite whatever is actually occurring in real life, how does this affect other areas of your life? I was actually really curious. And she told me, within a second, she's like, oh my gosh, my love life, my relationships. Every single relationship I've had, especially if the guy is super hot, I never thought that they really loved me. And she was telling me about the last relationship that she had and how he was a bodybuilder, and she was like, yeah, he was just like really attractive and really fit, and I like Starbucks Frappuccinos, and I just never thought it was a real thing. I never believed that he loved me. And I was like, really? So did he ever tell you anything or demonstrate that he didn't love you? And she's like, no, it was actually just the opposite. But I had my blinders on, and I was so scared that I never took it seriously when he would tell me, I love you. And she would actually, she would find excuses, and she would find little things that he did. So if he didn't hold her hand during a movie, oh, it's because he doesn't love me, right? If he doesn't return my text right away, oh, it's because he doesn't really love me. And so what happens is when we have these blinders on, we find ways to validate it. And eventually with that relationship, she kept on pushing him away, even though all he wanted was to get close to her. And eventually that relationship dissolved. And the reason why I'm sharing the story, because it's so poignant, it's so relevant. As a coach, I've coached probably in my career over 600 people, right? And these are a lot of professionals, business owners, executives, a lot of really highly motivated people, high performers, just like everyone in this room. And I get this over and over and over again. And to me, this really is the reason, the fact that we have our blinders on, right? A pattern actually, before I get to that, a pattern actually that I see a lot in my coaching practice is that in general, men, right? If men have blinders on, their focus is almost always on an objective, on a goal, on a task, like very task-oriented, like I'm just gonna go, I'm gonna do, achieve, right? And the really interesting thing is, when we have our blinders on, I would say like 95% of the time, our blinders always face towards our own unworthiness. It's really, really interesting. And that takes the form of fear, of doubts, of negative self-talk. And to me, this is the real reason behind the wage gap. This is the real reason why I see women in their careers, they just get more and more stuck, right? Despite the evidence that says women leaders really rock. Women leaders, women run boards, their companies do really well. Women run companies, they're not only more stable in the long term, they're actually higher performing, 15 to 30% more revenue generating. Women as leaders invest more in human resources, and they invest more in their people and in their teams and building relationships. Studies have just shown that women as leaders are amazing, right? But even despite the studies, even initiatives like this, and all these women's groups and all these women's conferences, which are absolutely fabulous, but to be honest with you, we really haven't moved the needle on the wage gap. We really haven't moved the needle that much in terms of women moving up in corporate power, and aside from the panelists and women in this room, women moving up in corporate power and women moving up in political power in this country. It just hasn't really fully, fundamentally shifted. And I really, really believe that the blinders are a huge reason for that. And also, I also believe that it's a huge reason for why anxiety-related disorders are completely on the rise. Anxiety, depression, adrenal fatigue, our hormones being all out of whack, right? So women are actually twice as likely to develop an anxiety disorder as men. Like, that's pretty messed up, right? But really, women think a lot. It's actually been shown that women need more sleep than men because our minds are constantly going, right? But we're thinking with our blinders on. We're thinking almost inwards towards ourselves. And so really, it's not necessarily that we have a glass ceiling, right? Society putting all these things down. It's almost like a glass cage that we trap ourselves in because of our own feeling of our own unworthiness and inadequacies. And just to present a really simple I guess, a solution to that, right? It's very simple, it's very powerful, and it's very profound. It's this notion of being able to accept compliments. And not just accepting compliments on this logical level, like, oh yes, I look great today, thank you so much. It's actually really, really owning that as part of who you are. So we all know who's really good at accepting compliments. Men are really good at accepting compliments, right? And especially my boyfriend is really good at accepting compliments and really good at getting compliments from me. And just a really quick story. So we have this thing, and I say, oh, Justin's going on a fishing trip, right? And he'll call me, and it's really cute, and he'll say, hey, honey, how are you? I'm good. How are you doing? So do you miss me? Yes, I miss you. Well, what do you miss about me? Oh, I miss the fact that you're really organized and you're a great planner and you're very thoughtful, and I just run down all these things, and then eventually get to, and I love you and I really do miss you and you're so sweet and you fill up my world, right? And then he'll give me some compliments, and of course I never remember them. I can't actually even remember them right now to tell you. And I thought in the beginning, I was like, oh geez, like guys just like really, they're just like so high maintenance. They need all these compliments to like keep their ego up, right? And then I was just like, okay, this is just a thing. But then one day, actually when I was thinking up this talk, I realized that he didn't cherish the fact that he's like a hard worker and he's very thoughtful and he is really considerate and picks great places for dinner. That wasn't what he cherished. What he actually cherished was the fact that someone that he really loves and respects as a partner in his life, that I felt that way about him. So it wasn't about the compliment, it was actually about me and my value to him. And I had my blinders on so much, I didn't realize the value I had in his life. And I will never forget that moment, because how often do we walk through life with these blinders up, right? And these blinders, when we have them up, I actually think the power of women in the workplace, it hasn't even been unleashed yet. Because for the most part, we all have this, right? And the ability to be able to take in and really own how people feel about us. This is what I see all the time too, is whenever someone comes to me and they're like, oh, my boss doesn't recognize me at work, or my partner doesn't acknowledge all of the things that I do, or my colleagues don't appreciate me. Whenever I hear this, almost always when we get to the heart of the matter, just like Justin, my boyfriend, people around us are waiting for us to wake up to the reality of how much we mean to them, of how much we mean to the company. And if we can begin to take the blinders off and to actually be able to really take in these compliments that we all are so good at ignoring. It's almost like when someone gives me a compliment, I have an out-of-body experience, and I'm just like, okay, yes, thank you. But really taking that extra minute to own that as part of your identity, that has a spiral effect that is very, very powerful. And so I just asked, since we're here in this group, let's take our blinders down for today and just be open to the essence of each other and to the beauty and the power that's in this room. Because I saw the guest list, and there's some amazing, amazing women in this room. And so my email is up here, anna@annasweet.com, because Boston Businesswoman has sponsored 20 spots for anyone who this really resonates with them, and you want to go through a leadership session through this. So email me if you're interested. And also if anyone here, if this is something that you see in your company and you want us to come in and do a talk and a workshop, we're more than happy to. So I just want to end, before we go to break, with us all just taking a deep breath together on my cue, and then just syncing up our hearts so that we can really be free and break free from this glass cage, right? So on the count of 3, deep inhale, 1, 2, 3. Nice. So enjoy the rest of the day, enjoy the vendors, and I look forward to speaking to you. Thank you, ladies.